After a series of brazen attacks on places of worship in Russia's Dagestan, a synagogue continues to smoulder. The mostly Muslim region announced 3 days of mourning on Monday after gunmen went on a rampage there in coordinated assaults on two of the republic's most important cities. The death toll has risen to at least 20. Here's Sergei Melikov, the governor of the Dagestan region.
Today has become a day of tragedy for Dagestan, and not only for Dagestan, but for our entire country. Unprecedented in their cruelty, terrorist attacks were committed today against religious sites in the capital of Dagestan, Makhachkala, and our ancient city of Derbent.
Melikov added that authorities understand who is behind the organisation of the attacks, adding that foreign forces had been involved in preparing the assault. He did not give details, and there has been no immediate claim of responsibility. Attackers with automatic weapons burst into an Orthodox church and a synagogue in the ancient city of Derbent on Sunday evening. They set fire to an icon at the church and killed 66-year-old Orthodox priest Nikolai Kotelnikov. In the Caspian city of Makhachkala, around 75 miles north, attackers shot at a traffic police post and attacked a church. Gun battles erupted around the Assumption Cathedral in Makhachkala, with heavy automatic gunfire ringing out late into the night. At least 5 of the attackers were killed, and Russia's investigative committee said the majority of those dead were policemen. Dagestan is made up of a patchwork of ethnic groups, languages and regions that live in the shadow of the Caucasus Mountains between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. President Vladimir Putin, who has long accused the West of trying to stoke separatism in the area, expressed condolences to those who lost relatives via his spokesman, Dmitry Peskov. The attack on Christian and Jewish places of worship has stoked fears Russia may be facing a renewed militant Islamist threat just 3 months after a deadly attack in Moscow. 145 people were killed at the Crocus Concert Hall in March. Islamic State claims responsibility for that attack.
The chief executive of a South Korean battery maker apologized on Tuesday over a massive factory fire the day before as firefighters found the body of the last missing worker, raising the death toll to 23.
We apologize for the loss of many lives in the fire accident at the Aracel plant on June 24th.
Aracel CEO Park Sung-kwan was speaking to reporters at the factory site in Hwasong, an industrial cluster southwest of the capital Seoul. He promised the company would take on a firm responsibility for the tragedy and cooperate with the authorities' investigations, while Aracel's director insisted the company had fully complied with safety procedures and training, including with simulated fire conditions. A Labour Ministry official told Reuters authorities were looking into Aracel's compliance and whether it gave adequate safety training for temporary foreign workers. Some of the 103 workers at the factory, including a number of those killed in Monday's fire, were contract staff sent by a manpower company. At least 17 of the victims were Chinese nationals and 1 Laotian. Some women, believed to be family members of the deceased, were seen sobbing for their loved ones outside the factory on Tuesday. Between their cries, one of them said in Korean, "How scared you must have been." Firefighters with search dogs combed the gutted structure before locating the missing 23rd victim. Forensics, police and Labour Ministry officials were also there as part of a joint investigation. One official told reporters 9 agencies were working together to figure out the exact location and cause of the fire. It's the latest industrial accident in a country where dozens of manufacturing workers lose their lives on the job each year, despite repeated calls to improve workplace safety. The South Korean government has now ordered urgent safety inspections at high-risk industrial sites.
China has approved the sale of popular weight loss drug Wegovy. That's according to Danish drug maker Novo Nordisk on Tuesday. In March, Novo said it would initially focus on patients paying out of pocket for the weekly injectable drug once approved in the country. The company did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment on its launch plan. It also didn't elaborate on costs and expected supplies of the weight loss treatment in China. The latest approval comes at a key point for Novo in the Chinese market. Its patent there on active ingredient semaglutide will expire in less than 2 years. Local drug makers have also raced to develop generic versions and Novo faces competition from the US rival Eli Lilly. Novo has grown massively in recent years to become Europe's most valuable company. Another of its drugs, Ozempic, won approval from Beijing 3 years ago. Novo saw sales of the product in the Greater China region double to $698 million last year.
But for the independence of the UN system.
Have you ever experienced Uber's surge pricing? Now imagine something similar but on a global scale with shipping. That's what's happening now, affecting costs worldwide. After Yemen's Houthi militants targeted ships near the Suez Canal in December, freight rates more than doubled as shipping companies rushed to find new routes to go around the Suez. But in March and April, they have fallen back. Now, prices have recovered and risen higher than the January peak. Why the spike? It's not peak shipping season yet, and new ships have been added since last year. Yet global manufacturing is booming, and port strikes in Europe and potential ones in the US are creating bottlenecks. US tariffs on Chinese goods have also led to a rush in front-loaded demand to avoid higher costs. This urgency is pushing rates up. With ships rerouting around Africa's Cape of Good Hope, travel time increases, demanding more ships to maintain trade flow. Consequently, idle fleet rates are at a record low. For shipping companies, this is profitable. Those heavily relying on flexible contracts with spot prices like Zim Integrated Shipping have seen their shares rise significantly. These factors might stabilize, but for now, shipping rates could rise even higher. Like Uber's surge pricing, shipping costs are driven by supply and demand dynamics. The Red Sea crisis is
Riding horses and playing foosball, Oren Nolson might look like an average 13-year-old.
Walk on, good man.
But for the past 10 years, he suffered from daily seizures. Some so extreme that he lost consciousness and even stopped breathing, said Oren's mother, Justine.
Every moment of his life is affected because of his epilepsy. I had a fairly bright and up-together 3-year-old that within a few months of seizures commencing deteriorated rapidly and lost a lot of skill.
But a new device fitted into his skull in a world-first trial at London's Great Ormond Street Hospital in October 2023 has reportedly reduced Oren's daytime seizures by 80%. The device's leads are connected to a neurostimulator which emits a pulse of current to block or disrupt abnormal electrical activity in the brain. Here's consultant pediatric neurosurgeon Martin Tisdall.
But this study is hopefully going to allow us to identify really whether this is an efficacious treatment for epilepsy, and also is looking at a new type of device which is particularly useful in children because the implant is in the skull and not in the chest, and we hope that that will reduce the potential complications. We now know that we've left him with the leads exactly where we want them to be. So that gives the best chance of the device working and reducing the seizures.
Oren is part of the CADET project, which investigates the viability of deep brain stimulation to treat children with Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. 3 more children are set to be fitted with the neurostimulator as part of the trial. 7 months after the surgery, Justine says she's seen a massive improvement in her son, who also has autism and ADHD.
Very optimistic for the future. I think The Great Ormond Street team gave us hope back, which was something we didn't have. Now the future looks brighter.
Kenya's protests followed President William Ruto to a school on Sunday where he was attending the consecration of a bishop.
I am telling Ruto, I'm telling Kenya police.
Widespread youthful demonstrations have erupted across the country over a proposed finance bill that aims to raise an extra $2.7 billion through additional taxes. Inside the school in the town of Nyahururu, Ruto was offering his praise.
I am very proud of our young people. They have stepped forward tribeless. They have stepped forward peaceful. And I want to tell them we are going to engage them.
Outside, protesters were, according to local media reports, blocking vehicles belonging to leaders of Ruto's ruling Kenya Kwanza party. Ruto was whisked away by his security team when they realized the crowds were there to confront him. Protesters say the finance bill threatens to stifle the economy and raise living costs for Kenyans who are already struggling. However, the International Monetary Fund has insisted on the necessity of the bill for reducing the budget deficit and state borrowing. Last week, Ruto endorsed recommendations to scrap some of the new levies, including on car ownership, bread, cooking oil, and financial transactions. Parliament is scheduled to debate the bill on Tuesday and vote on proposed amendments.
Shein has already filed papers for a London share listing. That's according to Reuters sources, who say the fashion firm confidentially made the move in early June. It's not clear when the share sale might now take place. China-founded Shein began to explore a London listing early this year. That was after its original plan to list in New York ran into opposition. US lawmakers have raised concerns over labour practices in the company's supply chain. Known for its cheap clothing, the firm was valued at $66 billion in a fundraising round last year. Now a listing in London would be a boost for the city's stock exchange, which has struggled to attract big-name IPOs in recent years. There was no comment on the latest reports from Shein or regulators. If British watchdogs do give the green light, shares in the firm could potentially start trading within weeks. The timing means it will probably have to deal with a new UK government, with polls pointing to a win for Keir Starmer's Labour Party in the country's upcoming general election. The party has indicated support for Shein's listing, but some senior Labour lawmakers have called for greater scrutiny of the company and its employment practices.
Hyundai's unionised workers in South Korea voted for possible strike action on Monday. The move comes after talks with the automaker stalled. The discussions were focused on wage rises and an extension of the retirement age. A union official told Reuters they were willing to negotiate with management if they changed their stance. The union is one of the biggest in the country with more than 43,000 members. It said almost 90% of its members had approved strike action unless Hyundai accepted its demands. If it goes ahead, it will mark the first such action in 6 years related to wage negotiations at the car maker. It could disrupt production of some popular vehicles at home, which Hyundai has been exporting to offset its slow domestic sales. The union wants a minimum basic monthly pay increase of just over $114, and performance pay equating to 30% of Hyundai's net profit for last year. It's also demanded an increase to the retirement age to 64 from 60. South Korea's rising life expectancy and inadequate retirement pension payments have led to demands to be able to work for longer. A Hyundai representative was not immediately available for comment.
Boeing is moving to tackle worries over the quality of its jets by buying key supplier Spirit Aerosystems. That's according to reports by Bloomberg, which says the deal will mostly be funded with stock. It reportedly values Spirit at about $35 per share, a premium of about 6% over the firm's Monday closing price. The deal is now expected to be announced within a matter of days. It all comes months after a mid-air blowout on one of Boeing's 737 MAX jets. That revived concern over quality control at the firm and left it facing close scrutiny by regulators and lawmakers. Now Boeing hopes reacquiring Spirit, which it spun off back in 2005, will give it more control over its supply chain. The aerospace giant has blamed the company for sending it incomplete or faulty parts. Talks over the takeover had earlier hit a stumbling block over Spirit's work for Airbus. The European firm threatened to block any deal that saw Boeing making parts for its latest jets. Airbus is now expected to acquire the relevant Spirit factories as part of the move.
U.S. stocks ended mixed on Monday, with the blue-chip Dow rallying to a one-month high as investors rotated out of AI-related stocks and added some of this year's laggards. The Dow climbed nearly 0.7%, the S&P 500 shed about 0.3%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq dropped more than 1%. AI darling NVIDIA slid more than 6.5%, down for a third consecutive session. Last week, the chipmaker became the world's most valuable company, but it has since handed the title back to Microsoft. Other chip stocks, including Broadcom, Qualcomm, and Marvell Technology, also saw big one-day losses. While investors on Monday may have taken AI-related profits, Rod von Lipsey, managing director at UBS Private Wealth Management, sees the sector pullback as temporary.
We continue to believe that the enabling segment of AI, those are the power suppliers, those are the semiconductors, those are the cloud-based companies, that those companies are still going to have incredible support. 40% of the companies in the S&P 500 mentioned in their last quarterly calls AI. So this trend is not over. We still think it has legs. We think that investors should make sure that they have exposure and continue to stay invested.
Tech stocks bucking Monday's downward trend were Apple and Meta Platforms, both of which rose after a report said the Facebook parent has discussed integrating its generative AI model into Apple's recently announced AI system for iPhones. Technology and consumer discretionary stocks were the lone decliners among the 11 S&P 500 sector indexes. Energy was the top outperformer, gaining more than 2.5%. The biggest event on investors' radar this week is Friday's Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index report, the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge, which is expected to confirm that price increases are
already
cooling.
earmarked 8 billion euros in investment, of which only 2 billion have been invested so far. So right now we're focusing in accelerating the deployment of these 6 billion euros remaining, which have been earmarked for security and defense. We need in parallel to do a needs assessment and a market analysis to identify the gaps and those areas where the EIB can provide a larger value added and really contribute to stepping up its support and building the capacities of Europe in the area of security and defense. So right now we're focusing and accelerating the deployment of these 6 billion euros remaining and also getting off the ground a new facility to invest in equity of startups, innovative companies, for example, in the area of cybersecurity. We will do in parallel a market analysis to identify gaps and a needs assessment going forward. And I expect that in the second part of the year we will have a good pipeline of projects of European interest that we will be able to finance, thus reinforcing the capacity of Europe to ensure the safety, peace and security of its citizens and businesses in Europe.
Faced a tumultuous end to her long-standing TV show, The Ellen DeGeneres Show, amidst workplace misconduct allegations. Despite attempts to address the issue, her reputation suffered damage, leading to the show's demise in 2022 and a significant loss in earnings for DeGeneres. Ellen DeGeneres skyrocketed to fame and fortune with her daytime talk show, The Ellen DeGeneres Show, which earned her annual salaries ranging from $75 million to $90 million. The show, known for its lighthearted segments and DeGeneres' mantra of "be kind," garnered a massive following. However, allegations of hostility and harassment behind the scenes tarnished its image, leading to DeGeneres' departure from TV 2 years later. Ellen DeGeneres, despite earning $50 million annually from her show, faced backlash over workplace issues upon its end. Her income streams extend beyond television, including voice acting, film entrepreneurship, and real estate investments. Following her retirement and scandal, DeGeneres adopted a low-key lifestyle. However, she eventually addressed her controversial exit from TV during a stand-up comedy comeback in Los Angeles 2 years later. The hate went on for a long time. The Be Kind girl wasn't kind. That was the headline. I'm making jokes about what happened to me, but it was devastating. In July 2020, former and current employees of The Ellen DeGeneres Show disclosed to BuzzFeed News their negative encounters while working on set. Some lost their jobs for taking medical leave or bereavement days, while others were instructed not to interact with Ellen DeGeneres, depicting her as unapproachable. That Be Kind bullshit only happens when the cameras are on. It's all for the show. I know they give money to people and help them out, but it's for the show. Many former and current employees blamed executive producers and senior managers for toxicity on The Ellen DeGeneres Show. However, one insider emphasized Ellen DeGeneres' responsibility, noting her frequent reliance on managers who painted a rosy picture. Racism allegations also surfaced, prompting Warner Media to conduct an internal investigation and leading to the departure of 3 top producers. Staffers received increased benefits, but a year later, DeGeneres announced the show's end after its 19th season. She cited a lack of creative challenge as the reason for its conclusion while pursuing other projects. Is one of the world's biggest pop stars, but her tour writers reveal diva-like behavior, making her difficult to work with. Collaborators like Sia have complained about her dominant and analytical nature. Perry also reportedly asks her staff and crew not to speak to her, look at her, or ask for photos. During Katy Perry's 2011 tour, she issued a 45-page tour rider with numerous demands. Her dressing room requirements included a full-length mirror, a glass door refrigerator, specific flower arrangements, cream or soft pink drapery, high-speed internet, and specific furniture including egg chairs and French-style lamps. She also requested fresh food, organic fruits, and specific wines served on chinaware with ceramic mugs and plastic straws. Perry insisted on staying only in 5-star hotels, specifically in a presidential suite, with the entire floor booked for her entourage and complimentary breakfast for her team. In her tour rider, Katy Perry included strict rules for her drivers. They must stay behind the wheel unless notifying her first and have minimal contact with her guests, or her fans. Drivers are not to start conversations, ask for autographs, or take photos. Their ringtones should be off, and they must not stare at Perry through the rear view mirror. The window should be half down at pickup and drop-off points, and they should not touch her bags unless asked. Additionally, 4 water bottles should be available in the car. Perry's only reasonable demand was that drivers refrain from making phone calls while driving for safety. Katy Perry's demanding tour rider shows little regard for her staff. She has been criticized for her diva behavior, including rudeness to American Idol contestants. An industry insider expressed surprise at her backstage.
These next few days are going to be tough, and the next few months to restore some of these homes and families back are going to be difficult, but it does mean that we also still need to remain alert and be helping our neighbors. We have damaged roads, we have damaged bridges. We did lose a Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad bridge. That is the main bridge going into Iowa that a lot of commodities and different materials move on throughout the state, and between us and that river collapsing and going down the Big Sioux last night was a big loss for us. That'll impact us for many, many months to come.
An ancient Roman laundry with mosaic tiled floors has been uncovered a few steps away from the Vatican City. Archaeologists found the ruins during excavations for the construction of a new pedestrian underpass. The area, once lapped by the waters of the Tiber, was originally the location of prominent imperial residences. Alessio de Cristoforo is an archaeologist supervising the dig. He says the Roman building was later converted into an open-air laundry facility, or Follonica.
From a historical point of view, it is very interesting to see this phenomenon where an imperial property that belonged to the emperor would change its function and get transformed during a rather ancient age. We think this Follonica dates approximately between the end of the 2nd century AD and the first half of the 3rd century AD. This is a rather unique phenomenon in Rome. Usually this type of transformation happens later, so it is an interesting novelty for us.